Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to my week 4 reading wrap up of 2023. I am so happy to have you here with me. I'm so excited to be doing this weekly wrap up. I got through a lot of great things this week. I also got through some pretty horrible things this week. So this is going to be a very long video, I can tell you already now, because I have lots of ranting and gushing to do. So we won't waste any time at all. Okay. The first thing that I want to do, and then we'll dive into the books, is say a wonderful thank you and welcome to 2 new patrons of mine. If you don't know, the Book Refuge is pretty much completely funded by fans. I have a Patreon and channel memberships, and they supply 90% of my income. So I'm extremely blessed to have you. It's just so important to me. So I have 2 new patrons, Dylan and Kelly T, who both joined my Patreon. So thank you both so much. I hope you're watching. I hope you're enjoying the content. And if you would like to know more about how you can support me, I have the links down below. Whether you want to become a monthly backer or you just want to send me a tip for some coffee, those are great too. They both keep me going. So without further ado, let's dive into these books because, like I said, we have a lot to say. And first off, I know I'm getting a little distracted by my earrings, but just check these out. My cousin actually makes these. Her store is called the Happy Ohana, and she makes these wood detailed gifts, and I freaking love these earrings. And when you know, if you've seen the cover, you know one of the books I'm going to talk about. So I just felt very inspired to bring out my horses. So I'm sorry if they're a little distracting. They're distracting me too, but I don't care. They're going to be in this video and we're just dealing with it. Also, excuse me if I have to take frequent drinks. Part of the reason I got through so many books this week is that I didn't get off my couch for 3 days. I had a cold and an ear infection, which was just dandy. I'm still pretty, the hearing hasn't fully come back, the blockage isn't fully gone from my left ear. So I may need to take some frequent drinks. But the first thing that I finished was Fell from the Sky by Brandon Strain was the name of the fanfic author for this. So this was a fic that was recommended to me after I read, which one was it? The Radiant. That was a Ginny and Lucius fic, and I wanted to read another fic with Ginny in it, and so someone recommended this one to me, which is a Ginny, Harry, and Draco menage. So I was very intrigued by this one. This one actually takes place in Canada, and Draco is a single dad. He has a little girl this time, which I really liked that change up. But yeah, he has a little girl, and he has just been hired to be a Quidditch coach, and this team that he's going to be coaching for has Ginny and Harry on it, and they're a couple, and they're on that team. And of course there's some animosity when Draco gets brought in, but he's like, I'm not like that anymore. I'm a single dad. I need this job. I think, too, he's been mostly cut off from his family because the woman that he had this baby with was not approved by the family. It was actually an original character. Her name was Anastasia, I think. We don't obviously see much of her 'cause she's dead, sadly. But, so he was, cut off from his family because of that relationship that he had. So, anyway, he takes on this job, and I had a pretty good time with this. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars, and I'll tell you kind of my main gripes with it. But I will say that for the first 50%, I was in. I was having a great time. I loved the dynamic. I loved this Draco. He was a much softer person and very considerate, and I liked that. He's also openly bisexual in this. So we see him in the beginning actually dating his daughter's teacher, who's a man. And so for the first half of the book, he's dating this man. And that's actually my first gripe, is that for 50-60% of this book, he's with this other character. And then he breaks up with this character, and then we still have to have this 10% where he's not with anyone because we can't have him just jump in bed. And then we finally have Ginny and Harry approach him with the fact that they're actually both interested. And actually, Harry's never been with a man before, but he's been interested. And Ginny has been with 2 men before. And would love them all to be together, and then things go. But, like, we only get one scene of them all together, and then they were happy and it was over. It's not even so much that there wasn't multiple sex scenes, although y'all know in my fanfic I like them to be a bit steamier, but it's the fact that they're only together for like 20% of this book. That's the part that was dragging for me. Yes, I also would have liked to see more steam, because when I'm reading a menage, I would like there to not only be one scene, but it just was way too long before we got them together. So I gave that one, hold on, I'm looking at my sheet. I gave that one 3.5 stars, and it was a 2 on the spice scale. Some kinks that were in it. Harry is actually a bit submissive in this, and he actually is a bit submissive to Ginny. And so we do see a couple sex scenes of like just the two of them, like when they're role playing a little bit, and Ginny is kind of the dom of the two and will like pin Harry down and like dirty talk to him, and that was pretty great. But there just wasn't enough, and I don't feel bad about that. Then I read Funny Feelings. This was on my TBR for January, and I'm so glad that it was. I had seen a lot of my friends loving this in December, and it was being put on people's favorites lists, and in January I had wanted to read quite a few of my friends' like favorite books from, people that were giving books their favorites from the year before. And so I grabbed this one. I ordered myself my own copy, and I actually like annotated a little bit of this. I was using some of my sticky notes that I bought. Let me find one so I can show you guys. I've been trying a few different things with annotating to find something that like works better or easier for me. Damn it, now I can't find one. Of course. And there are these clear sticky notes. So this one was purple, so like I didn't put it over the top, but I do have like clear sticky notes. Like here's actually one that I put my patron notes on, and then I can like stick it on my computer right here so that I can see stuff. So I'm trying those. But anyway, this is a very sweet contemporary romance. This is a friends to lovers. They're both comedians, but the heroine is like currently a comedian. Our hero is her manager and a single dad, and they've been friends for quite a few years now. And he became her manager because he was very inspired like by her, and he wanted to support her and help her. Not so much because he wanted to be someone's manager, but he did still want to be involved in comedy, but he didn't feel really inspired to be a comedian himself anymore after the situation that leads to him being a single dad, which I don't want to spoil any of that because like this book was so beautiful. But there is definitely grief dealt with in this, and in a different way, because the thing I will say is that the woman who is the mother of his child is gone, and they were never together. So I'll just put that there. But the way that like grief was dealt with, and it was very beautiful. I liked it. And then our heroine, Farley, so she's the comedian, and I had been warned about it. That's the thing, because like my friends have read it. Like some of the first jokes she tells are bodily function related, and I know from some of my friends when they started it that they were like, oh no, I can't take like bodily humor. And I was like, oh, so when I started it, I was prepared for that, because there is some poop jokes and things like that. But those can be funny. It's just in a romance novel, you don't necessarily want there to be like bodily function jokes and stuff, Yeah, there's some books I read last year that went too heavy into poop jokes, and it like ruined the thing. But side note, because she's a comedian, it like actually worked for me, and it was really cute, and she's so endearing. And Meyer, his daughter, she's deaf, and so there's great representation in this for that, and that's actually like how these two meet. I don't want to ruin anything, it's so special, but it has to do with his daughter, how they first connect, and having to do with the fact that Farley knows sign language and is so interactive with his daughter that he's just completely enamored right away that someone is speaking directly to his daughter in the way she can understand it. So it was so cute. So this whole book, I read it basically in a day. It was so cozy and sweet, and I absolutely understand why everyone loved it. The connection between these two was so beautiful. And like, here's the thing that I'm going to say, because I do have another Friends to Lovers to share later in this. And Friends to Lovers, when it works, it is like my favorite thing, because you believe that the things keeping them apart were that their friendship is so great, right? And in a lot of books that try to do friends to lovers, especially when they do it with younger people, it's tough to believe because, I mean, I know what my friendships were like when I was young, and some of them were very strong, but my friendships with boys were never to the level that I wouldn't have like risked something for something. You know what I mean? Like you would risk it because you're like young and it could be a chance. And so when I read it in like new adult or high school, I'm like, what are you worried about? Like, go for it, right? Anyway, that's my cynical view of things. But when I see people who've been friends for ages and are so built into each other's lives and care, I acutely identify with this because there are people in my life that I have thought there was more of a connection with, and I had such a strong thing with them. And I had tested the waters before and been like slapped down, and then it takes so much to like rebuild that relationship. And 2-3 of my friends now are married to men that I've kind of made a push for before, you know? So when you've been slapped down before, or even when you have such a close connection, you don't always want to make that move. Sorry, I didn't mean to go so much into personal stuff, but like that's a thing. So this was so relatable to me because they so obviously both want each other and they're both pining, and they both they have reasons that are solid why they don't want to push into this. But when there becomes a fake dating scenario, it gets suggested that Farley should have a boyfriend for like a tour she's going to go on just to kind of take her off the market. And Meyer is like a well-known name because he was a comedian before. He's kind of the perfect person to be her fake boyfriend. And this, they both know is a dangerous situation because they both have feelings. And they're like, oh no, if I'm going to have to like touch this person and like be around them, it's going to be so hard. And I completely empathize with it, and I just love them. So I totally get it. This was pretty low steam, but the emotions were so high and it was beautiful. And I definitely, for it being funny feelings, I definitely teared up a few times when they were talking about humor. I shared this with my patrons. I'll share it with you guys. Like, there was a moment where Farley is telling a story to Meyer about her mom, who, again, I've said this does deal with grief, and there is a loss of like her mom, and she's telling a story of like her mom's funeral and something funny that happened where it just felt like her mom was trying to lighten the mood. And I shared the story that I've had 2 significant deaths in my life currently to this point, and honestly, remembering times where we just laughed until our guts hurt at like the remembrances and the wakes and the like funerals of these people are some of the best memories that I have when we're just remembering the times that that person made us laugh. And the thing that I'll remember the longest about my grandmother is her laugh. Like, I can close my eyes right now and I can hear her laughing. I've been working on a lot of like crafty projects in the last couple months. Again, if you're one of my patrons, you've seen the different things I've been working on, and those things make me feel close to my grandma. And I'm just going through a time where the memories, like I'm tearing up right now, but the memories bring me so much joy. And this book did that. So I know I'm tearing up. This isn't sad, but it definitely has some moments of like, the other side of happiness is sadness. The other side of laughter is crying, and how they can merge together. And I thought that was beautiful. So I gave this 5 stars. It was a 2 on the spice scale, but I promise you, like, it was worth it. It was worth it. It was so beautiful. It wasn't quite a 6-star because I did want a bit more of their relationship once they like were together. But really with this couple, because of how much they love each other and they like tell each other, you know, in the ways that you do when just being with someone like your quality time is, like, the last step was them to add sex. You know what I mean? Like, everything else about them is connected. So I talked about this way too long. They totally deserved it. It was 5 stars. It was beautiful. I understand. All right, then we're going to switch to Fallen Jester by Devney Perry. Yes, I was on to book 5 of the Clifton Forge series, and y'all, I've had a great time going through this series. I've had a wonderful time. And this was another one that started out very rocky for me, and I was pretty mad at the hero at multiple points. The heroine was giving him so many chances, But honestly, what I felt by the end of this one was that this hero needed someone to give him a lot of chances. You know, like, he honestly needed someone to, like, explain some things to him at different points that he hadn't received before. Like, he needed someone to give him a lot of chances. The thing that was hard is that this one is an accidental pregnancy. At the end of the last book, we knew what this one was going to be. This very responsible woman. I mean, I think she's 21. Like, she's not super young. She might be older than that because I think she's almost done with college. But she has a one-night stand with Leo. It is Leo, right? Yes, with Leo in Clifton Forge. And then she's actually involved in kind of a dangerous situation in the previous book that leaves her kind of shook. And so she goes back to school and she finds out she's pregnant. And she tells Leo right away, which... Cass, I love you. Thank you for telling him. Like, she finds out and she immediately tells him, which, that's one of my big problems with a surprise baby, but it was an accidental pregnancy. It wasn't a surprise baby. So she told him, but he reacts very badly. Mostly because he's afraid, but also because he's like, he sleeps with a lot of women, and he's like, people have tried to do this to my friends before, but she's like, you didn't use a condom for the first half, so that can happen. Okay, she's like, it can only be you. And he messes up a lot, and his friends call him on it. Like, that's what made this work, is that, like, he does mess up, and he messes up sometimes where you just are, like, banging your head, but two things make it work. He gets called out by everyone. Like, nobody lets him slide with this. His brothers' wives, they're like, what the fuck are you doing? This girl is so sweet and kind, and she's been through so much, and you are just screwing her over. And he's like, but I'm gonna be a bad thing for her too. That's the second part. He knows he's fucked up. Part of it is him pushing her away because he doesn't think he's safe for her, which is fair because there are bad people coming after them. And the fact that he knows that he fucked up and he works on it. So without, like, running too much of the story, like, he definitely fucks up for a good part of it, but then Cass is always willing to give him a second chance. Like, she gives him second and third chances. But you know that Leo is really working through something. And I'm willing to give him those chances too. And just when I think that he's fucked up too many times, he is a really, really great dad. And that wins me over so much. You know, I'm a sucker for a good daddy. So that wins me over a lot. And it does continue our story. And so no one is more surprised than I that by the end of this, when it was done, I was in tears and so happy. And I gave this one 4.5. I did. I gave this one 4.5. It's a 2 on the spice scale. This series is not very spicy. But, I mean, the scenes we get are good. But it's one, like, I shared this with the other ones. Like, really with Devney Perry, like, you get usually, like, an initial sex scene. And then you just get a lot of, like, and we're having sex all the time. And we don't ever get them. And that's something that I don't love. Like, if they're having sex, like, I want a little bit more of it. But that's not why I took a half star off. Like, it was, honestly, the yo-yoing was tough. But I only have one book left. I have Tin Queen, and I'm kind of saving it. I'm saving it, I think, for my trip because I want some audiobooks to listen to on the plane and when we're doing stuff. So I'm saving that one probably for February. But I very much enjoyed reading a lot of these in January, and they've been good to me. They've been really good to me. So it's been a good time. Then we have one of the books that I'm ranting about, and I'm quickly discovering that I'm not really alone in this, so I don't feel as bad as I was feeling when I was like, wow, I just really hate this. But I did get an arc of the audio of this from NetGalley, and I also received this book as a promotional gift from Valentine PR. But you know what? They don't pay for my reviews. No, nobody's paying for Jenn's reviews. So I don't feel guilty in saying that I gave this book 2 stars. And if you, like, I was pretty kind in my Goodreads review, but because this author is pretty popular right now, I didn't want to, like, well, I don't even know if they're pretty, but they've just done a really good marketing push. I won't lie. Like, I want to own all the books, and then I've read one. I own 2 of these. One that was sent to me as a gift from a viewer, because they sent me the first one in the series, and then this one, you know, was sent by Valentine PR, so, like, I want to like them. But, sorry, I should show it to you, but I read The Intern, which is book 4 in the Dalton Brothers series, because this is the one I was sent for the promo of, and then the audio was up on NetGalley, and I could get an arc of it. And this one just came out, like, maybe in the last month, I think, but I was sent it, like, after publication or whatever. So, another reason I don't feel bad completely scorching the earth with this review, because this book was bad, guys. Like, it was bad. And I mean, I say it a lot, like, I don't like to rake things over the coals too much, but this book, like, offended me in some places. And y'all, like, I don't get offended easily. I might feel like it because the last couple weeks I've, like, had a really bad book in, like, every one, but this book was bad, okay? Like, first off, it's sold as contemporary romance, and then there was also, like, erotic romance. And now, I don't consider erotic romance just because there's a lot of sex. Like, erotic romance, to me, and the definition that I've heard many friends agree, is that, yes, it usually correlates to there being a lot of sex in erotic romance. But erotic romance is still like romance, and it means that instead of the relationship work being completely, like, where you could take the sex out, we just add sex in because we like it. With erotic romance, you, like, have to have the sex for, like, the character growth happens, like, during the sex. Like, think Sierra Simone, think Pam Godwin, where emotional work is done in the sex scenes. Where in this one, there was just the only thing these two have is sex, which, I mean, it's not quite erotica. There still is an HEA and there's an overall thing, but, like, I don't even care enough to tell you the whole, like, basis of this story. I just want to say, like, the hero is a complete pig, okay? It's made off that, okay, I have to tell a little bit. These two, okay, so she is in law school, and he is a lawyer, and he does a favor for his old law professor and comes and like, shows up to her class once a semester. That's kind of his, like, thing that he does for her. And he goes there and he meets this really hot girl who immediately he walks in the room and he notices her and is thinking that he wants to, by the end of the night, get into her panties. Like, that's his plan. So after the thing, like, he's asked to pick, like, 5 people to go have a drink with him so he can talk with them more. He, of course, picks her, not just because she's pretty. Like, she is the best lawyer in the room. And we find out that, like, she's actually cousins with the Daltons, because this series is the Dalton brothers, and she is their cousin. So she hasn't been promised a place at their law firm, but she is kind of promised an internship with them, and then she has to prove herself. Like, they're not just going to give her a spot just because she has to earn it. But she never says her, like, connection to the Daltons when she's with it, because why? Like, she wants to earn things on her own. But little does she know, this man that she ends up having a one-night stand with in the alley, and then she's going to go back to his place with him, but her friend calls, and, like, it doesn't work out. When she shows up for her internship, her cousins are like, we're assigning you to a new lawyer that we've hired, you know, so that it's not a conflict of interest, so that we're not one of your advisors, which, completely smart business. What she doesn't know is that Declan Shaw has just been hired as one of their litigation lawyers. Yeah, one of their litigation lawyers, because that is a role that they, like, don't have within their firm yet. And they tell him, like, you need to take on one of the interns. Everybody has to have an intern. And also, you're going to take on Hannah. And then she walks in the room and it's him. And he, of course, thinks she lied to him. And then she does something that might be a bit controversial, but honestly, the way he was reacting, I was like, no, that makes sense. She pretends she was too drunk and that she didn't remember what he did. Now, if I'm being generous to him, I do understand his point. He's horrified, but also, like, because first he's pissed that, like, she didn't say who she was, but it's like he's not taking a second to think that if she's a good, like, of course she's not going to say who her family is to get her points, but he can't understand why someone wouldn't use those points. Anyway, moving along. But she pretends she was too drunk and doesn't remember it, so that, like, she remembers meeting him and doing it, but nothing else. Because she's like, he's freaking out, and I don't want him to, so she pretends she doesn't remember, which, in the moment, like, I understand why she did it. Like, I do. Because of how he's acting. He does feel horrified. And when I look back on it, I can try to be generous, because for him, he's like, you know, it doesn't get said in here, but if she doesn't remember it, he's like, she was too drunk for me to fuck if she doesn't remember it, right? So he's not thinking like, oh my God, I assaulted her, but he's feeling very bad that, because he'd been drinking too, but he's like, oh my God, she doesn't remember me. So that, I think, is supposed to be why he's so angry, is that she was too drunk to remember him. And what great chemistry they had. But also then later on, at like the third act conflict, when she says she remembers it, he's like, you've made me think that I was a bad guy this whole time. And the problem is, when that gets brought up, he like uses it as a reason to be mad at her, when we've lived through this whole book of him being an absolute ass to her, of him trying to get her kicked off, of like, he doesn't want her as an intern. So he's been bad-mouthing her to her cousins and other employees in her workplace, to her family members, saying stuff about her. And when she speaks to one of her cousins about it, he's like, well, I think he likes you, and that's why he's being mean to you. One of her cousins plays this fucking game. This man is in his late 30s, and he's playing that game, and her cousins are like, yeah, that's definitely what he's doing. And so then she thinks it's cute that he's being mean to her, and then he's disrespecting her. And that whenever we're in his head, he only is thinking about her body. He's thinking about her ass, her tits, her pussy, how he wants to get back into it, but he can't. She's just this temptation to him, and he can't. And then when they ever like do hook up again, he's like, I can't expect her to want anything more from me. So he immediately like white fangs her and is like trying to be mean to chase her away, after he's already like done this to her before. So it was just so awful. And I normally like workplace romance. I like some shenanigans happening. I like the secrecy. But he badmouths her to the point that when it's time for him to give his review of her, her cousins are like, can you like lay off a little? Like, nobody else says that she's bad except you. So like, can you not kill her in her review? Because we do want her to work with us and she's earned it. And now he's like, I do think she's good at her job, but oh shit, I've only badmouthed her to everyone. So now if I say something nice about her, it will look that either I'm fucking her, which is what's happening, or I'm lying for the people I work with, which would make her look like she's getting a legacy hire. So he's completely fucked her career, and somehow it's just supposed to all work out okay because reasons, but he was trash fire. The heroine, I kind of was in it for the heroine, but then when her cousin said like, he's probably being mean to you because he likes you, and she's like, oh, that's so cute. And so then every time he's mean to her, she takes it as like, he actually wants to fuck me. And I was like, you're TSTL as well. You should have said fuck this and like told your cousins what he was doing. Like, you should have told your cousins what he was doing in the terms of like, he's hurting my career, which was trash. So I gave this 2 stars. It was a 4 on the spice scale. Like, sure, some of their spice is spicy, and I am sure that will be enough for some people, but this was an asshole hero on a level that I haven't seen out. Like, this was a bully romance in the workplace. The ways that like she's in his office putting files away, and because he can't stop staring at her ass, he's like, you need to get out. Like, you need to get out and find somewhere else to do work. Making it seem like she's doing something wrong when really she's just existing in her work attire. And because he can't stop staring at her ass and like imagining coming up behind her and fucking her. Like, literally every time they're in the room. Again, like, I'm okay with some sexual attention, but like every time they're in the room, he's thinking of doing that. There is not a single scene where they are both together that he's not thinking of fucking her. And I'm sorry, that doesn't make it erotic romance. It makes him a sleazy, disgusting person. So, okay, we're done now. Moving along. Next, after that, I was like, I need something mindless and delightful. And so I read Yakuza Lover Volume 5. I won't have much to say about this. This is by Nozomi Mino. Probably ruined it, but this was lovely. This is Oya and Yuri, and this is their continuing relationship of her being a co-ed and him being a mafia boss, and their secret relationship. And this time there's some drama weaseling in because there's a woman who's been wanting Oya for a long time, and she tries to mess with their relationship. That's what this whole volume is. And I love them. I love my awkward, beautiful people. So this one was 4 stars. It's my favorite since like the first one. Like, honestly, I love this one so much. So yeah. that was 4 stars, and just like a 1.5 on the spice scale. Like these ones, honestly too, they've went, like this one was a lot tamer than some others, but that's okay. That's okay. They don't always have to be that. Okay, next I read one that I actually pre-ordered because I was really interested in the premise. I don't know if I'll continue reading the series because this got kind of weird, but I gave it a try. So I read Tempted by Billy Bloom and someone else, I forgot the other name. But this one I'd seen advertised, and y'all know that I love forced proximity and snowy places. And this was going to be a reality show taking place in a small Alaskan town. So it reminded me of like Alaska, The Last Frontier, which I used to watch with my parents and really liked. But there's a small town, and this small town agreed to having this pilot for the show filmed there because their town needs some upgrades, and they're the small town. They all support each other and work together. There's only like, I can't even remember, but there's like a very small number of people there. And they do fishing and other like agricultural and like, you know, crafty things to make money for their town. And so this group of, this all-women film crew of, I think there's 5 or 6 of them, go to this small town. And so we have Jolie, who is one of the camera people. And then we have Jameson, who he is ex-military, and him and his whole like crew actually moved to this town. So he was actually from this town, like he grew up there. And when their time was done, he went there and some of his friends like joined him. So those are some of the other guys we're going to see in other books, is the rest of his like crew here. But Jolie and him, she actually like gets hurt the first day that they're there. And like the film crew is supposed to like camp and kind of like be away from everyone else. But that quickly is like, they're not all made to be in the elements. So they kind of end up like each film crew member is like staying with someone, but it starts with her where she gets injured and he brings her back to his place and keeps her there. And like, she actually is like down to fuck like right away. And he's very shy because he hasn't been with many women in the last few years. Like he has an ex who lives in this town who had like cheated on him, which is awkward because it is like a very small town. And yeah, he and her, it's their awkward relationship, but it got really awkward. There was lots of miscommunications, and the third act conflict with how like the network like fucks him over and he immediately believes the worst of her. It didn't play out that good, and it didn't have as many of the elements of like an isolated thing that I was hoping for. I did think the premise was cool, and like I might try another one later in the series where there's going to be a menage, but it's not the next one. So I don't know when I'll come back, but I gave it 3.5 stars and it was a 2.5 on the spice scale. All right, then I read an arc of Radiant Sin by Katie Robert. Oh my gosh, this was really fun. Okay, and now I didn't rate this one as high as I've rated some of the others in the series, and I'll tell you why, but plot-wise, like legitimately, like the plot of the overall like Dark Olympus, this was the one that made the most forward progression in my mind. And so I was really in it for that. I felt that the romance was lacking a little bit, which was number 1, surprising for me because it was Katie Robert, and number 2, why I was like missing a bit from it. But still super engaged in this, okay? So this one is Apollo and Cassandra. Apollo is the spy master for Zeus. There is some shady stuff going on, which we, you know, there always is in Dark Olympus, but there's some shady stuff going on. There is this secret that the 13, you know, the 13 gods do not want anyone to find out. And that is, which I'll just tell you because we kind of know it. We've kind of known it from, I mean, honestly, the first book, because it's how the new Zeus took over. But basically, like, you can kill one of the 13. That's not one of the, like, legacy titles. You can kill one of the 13 and claim their spot. And this is something that Cassandra's parents tried to do, and they were taken out for knowing it. And so Cassandra and her sister, Alexandra, have been kind of sort of exiles because of this. But Cassandra was able to get a job with Apollo as his secretary. It was kind of a pity job in the beginning, but he can't do his job without her. But she's been trying to save enough money so her and her sister can leave Olympus because they just get judged there. But she's been paying for her sister to finish school, and once she does, she wants to get out of there. So because of that, Apollo has been into her for a long time. He thinks she's gorgeous, beautiful, she's curvy and delightful, and he just wants her so bad, but he's her boss, and he knows she wants to leave Olympus, so he hasn't made a move on her because he does not want to pressure her. He's a soft dom, which I love so much, and Cassandra's a kick-ass woman, and she also really wants him, but she doesn't want to be involved with someone in the 13 that is at, like, the level as him. And also, like, she has dated other people on the 13 before, so that's why I think it's a little, like, sus that she says that, but I get it. What ends up happening, though, is there's this house party that this suspicious man is hosting, Minos, who he had actually had some of his kids competing in the Aries competition. And we'd seen some of his children trying to compete for the Aries position. So we know that he's trying to wiggle his way onto the 13. And so there's this house party happening that is kind of like a game of Clue. There isn't like a crime that's happening, but he invites these people, which includes some of the people from the 13 and includes Apollo. And Apollo brings Cassandra as a date. So she and him are fake dating so that she's able to go with and help him. And Zeus actually offers her a lot of money to do this because she's like, I don't want to be involved. And he's like, if you do this, I will bankroll you and your sister being able to get out of town. So she's like, okay, I'm in. You're going to force me into proximity with Apollo, and I'm scared to be that close with him, right? So, anyway, so they do this. And there are different, like, house party games that Minos has people do, and we get to know some of the people are at this place, and then there is murders and dramatic things happening. So, there we go. That's the setup for it. So, I really loved that. I loved the things that we were finding out, and I really loved how it's set up, the next book's Cruel Seduction, which, luckily, I applied to get this on Edelweiss, and I was immediately accepted for it. I love Edelweiss sometimes. Because I did have an arc for Radiant Sim for a long time. Like, usually the publisher puts that out super early, but, like, I usually wait to read it. You know, like, this book comes out in less than 2 weeks now, because it's like, if I read the book too early, which is fun, I can't really talk about it, you know, like if I'd read this 5 months ago, I'm not really going to talk about it, you know, and like I have an arc for the next book and this one isn't even out yet, which is what happened when I read Neon Gods. I got the arc for, the next one, like, right away, and I read it, and then I just had to sit on it because none of my friends had read it. Anyway, side note, poor me, I got the book early. I know nobody wants to hear that, but I really want to read Cruel Seduction because just reading this book, it was such a good setup for Hephaestus and Aphrodite and the love knot that Katie has been teasing for so long, because these two are going to be in an arranged marriage, which we see getting set up in this one, and they're both going to try to, like, get revenge on the other person by having lovers, and I normally would hate that, but I think Katie Robert will do it well. So anyway, all right, so the things that, like, didn't work for me were the fact that there was a lot of focus on the plot. So even though I loved the plot, Cassandra and Apollo had such great chemistry, and this didn't have as much steam as I wanted, and I normally wouldn't hold that against a book, but I kind of am holding it against Katie Robert because we had such a perfect setup for this, and with Apollo being a soft dom and Cassandra being kind of a brat, and, like, them just being so, like, so great together, there wasn't enough romance between them. And then because of the truncated timeline of this, like, it's at a house party where we're only there for like a week, and then we're setting up the next thing, like, we don't get to see them, like, be happy together. It just, like, ends. And that was kind of disappointing that it, like, ended so quickly. So this is a case where I kind of wish I was still a part of Katie Roberts' Patreon, because I would love if she did some shorts about Cassandra and Apollo, like, when they're together. Like, that would be something I'd like to read, but I had to cut some of my Patreon spending for authors so that I could support creators, and that was one. So I gave this one 4 stars, and it was a 2.5 on my spice scale. But I really enjoyed it. I had a good time. The next one we can just move right by. I read Beckon by Verley Landon. We'll be speaking about this actually tonight. So if you're watching this on Sunday, you can go back and watch this video. This will be on the ABCs of Love chat with Jackie and Bex. This is a read along that I'm doing with Jackie where we're reading through this ABCs of Love thing. Beckon, I DNF'd. Actually DNF'd both books. I know that's not very supportive of our read along, but each book is by a different author. So I'm hopeful that continuing through this journey, there will be books that I love. These were just both ones that I really didn't like the representation of certain things in this. So definitely come to the live show to hear some fun, sassy stuff, because Jackie and I were talking about how we have some sassy things to say about this one. So next, I read When a Moth Loved a Bee by Pepper Winters. And so this one comes out soon too, which I wanted to get this one read because it comes out while I'm on vacation. And also I've been highly anticipating this book. I won't lie. I had first heard about it months and months and months ago, and I signed up for the ARC months and months and months ago. And this was going to be a fantasy romance with fated mate elements from Pepper Winters. And now I'd read some of her dark romances. I liked a couple, but they weren't really for me. They were too dark. But I thought the idea of her writing a fantasy would be amazing. And I think she has an amazing world that she built. It's so interesting. It kind of feels very nomadic. It almost feels caveman-ish, kind of. I don't know another way to explain it, because there's a tribe who lives on the plains, and then there's a wolf pack, and there are these two people, the girl and the stranger, and that's who our main characters are. And they have no memories when they wake up. The girl wakes up surrounded by this tribe of people who basically adopt her in. She doesn't have a name. She's just called the girl. I mean, she has a name, but I'm not going to tell you their names because it's a huge plot point. And then there's the stranger, and the stranger wakes up surrounded by wolves, and he's frightened, but then the wolves feed him and welcome him into their pack. And he doesn't know who he is, but he's having dreams of the girl. And pretty shortly into the book, they are drawn to each other and they come across each other because they are they're in this wilderness, they're in this world, in this plains, and they're not far apart, but they don't even know that they're supposed to be looking for each other. But the stranger, he's having dreams of the girl, and they end up coming across each other, and he sees her and he knows that she's his. And he doesn't know why, and he doesn't know how. He doesn't even know either of their names, but he knows she's his. And she has this feeling too, but she is, she's been with these people who have saved her. So she's not as, following her instincts or, on her own as the stranger is. And he's you're mine. I need to protect you. I need to have you. And he wants to take her and bring her back. And these people don't want to let her go. And also, she has a sidekick, kind of, who is this, lynx, who is doesn't want her to go with him. So she the lynx, this cat, attacks him and hurts him. And he goes away. But anyway, that's the setup of this. So it was an extremely compelling setup to me. The way it was written was very almost lyrical in parts. And them not having their memories was very interesting to me. Okay. And I was hooked. Now, if you look on Goodreads or you look on Amazon, this book says it's over 900 pages, okay? And I gotta say, it felt like it, okay? I was very compelled into this book. I was reading it. But there was 3 things that bugged me and ended up just totally swamping this book for me. And this is the first in a duet. I believe it's a duet. So I assume there'll be a second half that's just as long as this one, okay? First off, it took 50% for us to get more information. There was many repetitive scenes. There was them coming across each other, the stranger trying to take her either being taken away from him or not wanting to go with him trying to convince them they should be together, her not trusting him trying to convince them that they should be together, her not trusting him, and it just went over and over. Then when we enter kind of a different phase of the story and they do want to be together, both of them, there is other people trying to keep them apart. Anytime they get very close to fucking, someone's tearing them apart. So, I mean, you guys already know that is like giving me lady blue balls. Now, there is a purpose for the lady blue balls in this story because something very bad would happen if these two were to fuck. Something very bad would happen. I still don't fully know what that thing was, even though it does happen at some point. Then the book ends. And I know I'm being so vague about this, but I gotta tell you, I read 900 pages and I don't have a fucking clue what was going on. And like, that was cool for the first half, okay? Because I like a mystery and I was very compelled by these characters and I was like, who are they and what's going on? But I feel that this book was hundreds of pages overwritten. Like, hundreds of pages overwritten, okay? I needed a lot of these repetitive scenes cut out and it still would have been just as compelling. I needed us to have more information dropped at better points. And like, I knew there was going to be a cliffhanger. You are warned this is 2 parts. You are warned there will be a cliffhanger. And so then I get the cliffhanger. But after the cliffhanger, I felt like so much of the previous pages were wasted. And so I just started getting angrier and angrier when I was in the back half of this book. Every time we would enter into a scene where I was like, the scene is going to end the same way this previous scene ended. Like, there was no forward momentum. And in a way, I can understand it because a lot of the book, like, you're supposed to feel like that because the characters aren't getting answers, but I needed more answers. Now, there was some things I was able to suss out. I don't know if I'm right because the story's not over, that I thought were fascinating. I have a hunch, and this isn't a spoiler because I'm just guessing, that they are supposed to be like a mythical couple that doesn't remember who they are. Like, I have a feeling that they are some kind of mythical couple that can't be together. And there are a few clues. Like, when it's called When the Moth Loved to Be, that is a big part of it. Like, one of the characters represents a moth and one of them represents a bee. And that becomes clear. So, like, I know that by the end of it. I knew that. But I just don't know. And, like, I really feel that the page count of this is going to deter people. And honestly, it would have deterred me if it wasn't an arc and I wasn't fascinated. But I felt so, like, drug out by the time this was done. And who knows when the sequel will even come. I don't even know if I can make it through the sequel. But I also, like, I want to know who these are and what's going on. So, like, I don't know if I would sign up for an arc of the next one, but maybe I would borrow it from KU and, like, skip to the end to find out what happened. Like, because if that next book has a page count as long as this one, no way in fuck am I sitting through it. Like, I'll just tell you that. Okay? All right. Let's wrap this up because I have better books to talk about. And this is going to be one of the longer weekly wrap-ups we've had in a while. Oh, also, okay, so I gave it 3.5 stars. Honestly, I thought this could have been a 6-star book for the first 25%. Then I was like, no, this could still be 5 stars. I'm not getting enough of the romance part of it, so it'll be that. And then it just went steadily down. Now, I maybe even would have given it less, but because it was an arc, I gave it 3.5 so that I could round up to a 4. Just because you guys know, like, when I'm reviewing a book that is coming out as an arc, when it is, like, first coming out. We're not talking about The Intern. This book is already out and already has ratings, so I'm going to give my rating. But when I'm rating a book that isn't out yet, I find it very difficult to give it a lower than a 3-star just because I don't feel like it. But I also want my review to get out there for this one because I was very confused, and I feel like people deserve to see that because I was very excited about it. And this book had so much frustration in it. And I don't think the payoff was worth it. You know, I made a video very recently of my angst to happily ever after ratio. And right now, it's sitting very low on that. Like, there's so much angst. We have no idea what the HEA is. And also, based on previous Pepper Winters that I've read, where she puts her characters through so much that the HEA barely even feels like a blip, I don't know if she'll pull it off for me. So this was tough. So yeah, I gave this 3.5 stars. It was a 1.5 on the spice scale, and for it being 900 pages. And then there's a lot of trigger warnings. There is attempted essay. I mean, there basically is essay, but it wasn't penetrative essay, but there's basically essay. There's violence. There's harm to animals because there are animal friends in this. because they both have connection with animals. So there are some animal harm that is extremely hard to read when it happens. There's also like gaslighting and manipulation and just so much. So this book was a lot, and we're going to move on because we got to keep going. Then on Thursday, I did start the Kindle Unlimited Readathon. That is still going on. I'm still participating in it. I'm reading a really good book for it right now. So I started that with Shielded Heart by Tiffany Roberts. I want to finish the Infinite City series. And so one of the prompts was for a series that you've been putting off. And I've only read the first book in the series. So I read Shielded Heart, and also the audiobooks for this series are coming out. Tiffany and Rob are having those made. So the first 3 books, as well as one of the novellas in the series, all have art. And now I wanted to do a little show off, because part of the reason also I wanted to read Shielded Heart is that I'm a member of their Patreon, and I have a lot of their art. And some of their art features... Let's see one that isn't too smutty. Okay, this one isn't too smutty. A lot of their art features this beautiful couple right here. And I have wanted to read their book for so long because their art is just so beautiful. And Arcanthus is the hero. I think I have a really smutty ones of them too that I maybe can't show you. I don't know where my Ark and Sam stuff is. Let me see. I have a lot of... No, I don't see any more of it right now. But anyway, and I wanted to read them because I thought they're just adorable. They're so cute. I love them. And so anyway, yeah, I listened to the audiobook of this, and I have to say the audiobook was really cheesy, but like I liked it because Arcanthus is really cheesy. So it played well to how the narrator was narrating him. I think his name is James. And it was British, and also people on his crew. There's like an Australian, and a Scottish one. Like, I'm very excited for the Scottish character. Like, his audiobook is being recorded right now, Untamed Hunger. And, like, I can't even tell you how much I want the Untamed Hunger one because I want that Scottish bro. But anyway, so this is an Infinite City. This is sci-fi. Our human is a Terran, which means she's an Earthian, and she has just moved to the Infinite City she's gotten a visa there for a year. She's going to try to earn some money so that she can go to a planet where she'll be safe. She's also escaping an abusive fiance who had kind of tricked her into a relationship, gaslit her, abused her for many years, and she finally escaped. And so she's in this new city, and Arcanthus is just like walking through town, and he spies her and gets a scent of her. And he doesn't know it immediately, but he's drawn to her. And so he kind of starts stalking her. And he actually ends up like saving her from being assaulted. And then he introduces himself eventually. And he discovers that he's her mate. And so he really wants her. And he goes about wooing her. But then there's some drama. Because there is some people after Arcanthus. And in fact, he's not supposed to be out of his compound. Like, his bodyguards are very upset. His other crew members are very upset that he was outside. But he just gets tired of being cooped up. Arcanthus is also a quadruple amputee. You can't see it from these pictures, but he has actually had, there was a thing where all of his limbs were cut off. So he has 2 cybernetic hands and 2 cybernetic legs. He also, I wish I had the art for that. I really don't think I've bought it yet. I'll have to go buy it from the site now. As a Patreon member, we get discount codes for their, like, smutty art. And I need to go buy some Arcanthus and Sam stuff now. Anyway, I'll stop looking at my smutty book. And what was I saying? But anyway, there's someone who is after him, who wants revenge on him. And now that they see he's obsessed with someone, they have someone to go after. So, yeah. But I really loved them. It was really cute. This was, again, it was pretty cheesy, but it was really good. He is so into her. He calls her his little flower, his little mate. Like, he's just constantly doing that. Tiffany and Rob always write really good, like, praise kink. Like, I'm just being real. Like, now that my praise kink has been fully activated in the last year, like, I'm just very sensitive to it. And Arcanthus is so praiseworthy and good at, like, building up her self-confidence because she's been through a lot. Okay, this wonderful woman has been through a lot of shit. Okay? So, I had a good time with this, but I won't lie and pretend it's not cheesy. I had a good time because I like Tiffany and Rob's writing, and I love how, like, swoony the hero is, and there isn't really a ton of third act conflict going on. It's mostly outside, and it's just really beautiful. So this was 4-star. It was a 3 on the spice scale. If you have specific kinks, definitely praise kink. Definitely alien peen. He has a peen that like can like flower basically to like touch everything inside. It's really great. They write good peens. Okay, then the next one that I read for Kindle Unlimited readathon was Where Violets Bloom by Daisy Jane. This one was also recommended by a viewer, but I also already had it on my Kindle, so thank you for the recommendation. You know me well. Because after I read With Force, which is book 3 in this series, I wanted to read the other 2. Time for a drink. We're rounding out on an hour and we're not done yet. Which these are books that like they have pretty dark like undertones, but they're also written very lightly. So that can seem kind of what's the word? Like insensitive, but it's also very like, I don't know, I feel like it also makes it good as like an intro to dark romance at the same time. Okay? It's one of those that the acts that the hero is doing are very bad. Like, they're bad things. But he's also so endearing, and we know that his motives are completely pure, so you're okay with it. But it's not good, and if someone ever did this to you in real life, right, you would call the police. Only he is the police. And I have seen in reviews that this was so over the line for some people to have that he is a police officer who is doing this. But for me, because of the things the heroine is going through in her life, I wanted this guy to just do all the things to protect her. So I didn't care. Okay? I didn't care. But I'm just warning you, that might be an issue for some people, that this is a police officer who is using his power to stalk a woman and to have his fingers into her life in ways that he probably shouldn't. But so this is about Van and Violet, and Van has been stalking Violet for about a year. He had run into her one day and just felt this incredible connection, and so he started stalking her, and that leads to him definitely being over the top for it, but also it ends up being a great benefit to her that he's been stalking her, because Violet is in a very violent home. Her father's extremely abusive. He's actually put her in the hospital multiple times, to the point one time where she like needed to go on medical leave, and her family made her pay for her own medical bills using the money she had saved so she could move out. So she's in a tight spot, and Van knows she's not being treated well. He doesn't know what to do about it. But then one day, like, he just gets so sick of seeing it that he kidnaps her. And this is probably the cutest kidnapping I've ever seen, okay? I know, I'm sorry, I'm not romanticizing it, but I'm just telling you how it felt in the book, okay? It was adorable to me. Because he kidnaps her and he takes her to his home, and he doesn't hide who he is. He says who he is. He explains the situation. He unties her. He feeds her. He lets her sleep in his room, locked door, while he sleeps on the couch. And he just tells her what he's been doing and how he's been stalking her. And he's like, I'm sorry, but I can't help myself. And also, I'm really, really into you and I want to be with you. And she isn't as upset as she should be. But she also thinks that maybe having, like, living the life that she like with the father she has, that this kind of obsessive love might be a pattern for her. And so once she goes home, she's kind of just like, okay, maybe I shouldn't talk to him. And there's some back and forth. And like, she has a friend who actually thinks it's a kind of cool thing. And the fact that like he didn't hurt her, and that he's like, her friend almost sees it as comfort, because her friend knows that she's being abused and is like, maybe this man will end up being a knight in shining armor disguise. Then when things escalate, she goes home, like, not with him, like, she's going home after having spent like the day with him, a different day, and her father attacks her. And Van had dropped her off and like left, but see, he has a secret camera in her room, which I know seems bad. However, when he goes to check it this day, he sees that she is unconscious on her bed with a bag of peas put on her face. And he immediately calls his friend, who happens to be Malibu, who is the hero from With Force, and they go over there. And he beats up her dad and ties up her family and rescues her and says, what do you want me to do? And she's like, I just want them to leave. And so he threatens her family. Yes, all of them, because her mother and sister, they're not helpful either. They're completely under the dad's spell. It's really sad. But Van threatens them, and he's like, I'm a police officer here. I would get away with this. If you don't leave immediately and never come back, you're dead. And Violet doesn't even feel any remorse for it because of how horrible her family's treated her. So that's enough. I've talked enough. This one has a lot of good kinky things in it. I gave it 4 stars. It's a 4 on the spice scale. It has voyeurism, edging, praise, and then the trigger warnings of abusive parent, abusive police resources is definitely a thing. And there we go. All right. What we've all been waiting for. Or at least what I've been waiting for. Okay. I got an arc of Powerless yesterday. And I don't want to talk too much about it because I'm sure I'll talk about it enough once it's out, but this comes out on February 10th. I was lucky enough to be able to sign up for an arc of this. I'm on her street team, but her street team people aren't guaranteed arcs. I actually got an arc through a promotion company, so thank God. I'm so happy. And I'm going to be in Universal Studios when the book comes out. So I was like, I hope I get an arc because otherwise I'm just going to be miserable while I'm at Universal and not able to read this. So yesterday I cuddled in and I read this all in one sitting. It is a chunky one. This one's 500 pages, which I guess is almost how long Heartless is. But this is, I don't want to spoil it. So I'll just tell you the tropes and I'll tell you what I felt about it. And then I'll save everything else for when it's out. But this is a friends to lovers, grew up together, kind of. There's lots of jokes about them being kissing cousins when they get together. Those jokes being from Harvey, because you're not surprised. Harvey is such a naughty man. But if you guys, have read the other 2 books, you'll know that Jasper, when he was a teenager, was basically adopted. Not basically, he was adopted into the Eaton family, okay? We find out how in this one, and we see his dynamics with all of them, and it's beautiful. So the Eatons are Violet, who her book is in the other series. There is Cade, Rhett, Bo, and Cade, Rhett, Bo, Violet, and then Jasper is the adopted one, okay? And Jasper is a hockey player, and in this book, I believe, okay, I have to do some age checks in my head. The heroine is 28. And I think he's because when she was 17, he was 23. So I think he's 6 or 7 years older than her. And she would always come and stay with the Eatons in the summer. Her mother was Harvey's wife. Her mother's sister was Harvey's wife. Sorry. So Harvey is her uncle by marriage. And then Harvey's wife who died was her aunt, right? So she would come and stay with them in the summers, and so that's when she got to know Jasper when he was adopted into the family. Jasper's parents are still alive, by the way, too, but they have just pretty much abandoned him. So, but I don't want to give any more of that away. Stop talking about that. But that was very interesting to me that he's been brought in. So he's a hockey player, and this book starts. The tropes in this are a runaway bride, and then there's a road trip bit. There's, like I said, friends to lovers. There is some really good kinky play in this, just so good. And also just there's good anxiety representation. Jasper, he has some issues. He has anxiety and pretty heavy issues going on. There also is I don't want to ruin any of the story. But yeah, she's a ballerina. And she, at the beginning, is going to be marrying this in basically an arranged marriage. That's where I was going with it. Her mother married her father, Robert Winthrop, and he's very, very rich. So, like, her family's very wealthy, and her father would always kind of look down on the fact that she would go and stay with the Eatons in the summer, and he thought they were kind of trash or whatever. Which, I mean, they're pretty wealthy ranchers. It's not like they're, like, poor or anything. But, yeah. So this is starting with, we're at a dinner. It's the rehearsal dinner, and Jasper is there. And it was very interesting to me because Jasper was at this party, but none of the Eatons were invited to it. It's very interesting. It was just Sloane's family, like, and her her husband's to be family, and then that. And then we know that Jasper isn't happy to be at this, but he's like, if this is what she wants, and wow, she's such a different person than she was a few years ago. She's so beaten down. She doesn't look happy. He's noticing these. And then the, like, inciting incident of this book is that some information comes up that's a wake-up call to Sloane, and she's like, what the fuck am I doing? What am I doing? And Jasper is like, Sloane, what do you need? I'm your friend. What do you need? And she's like, get me the fuck out of here, right? And you know, everyone's putting the TikTok around right now that is the, like, horrified looks from everyone in the room. You know what song that's from? That's from a Taylor Swift song that came out when I was in high school. And the beginning of this is exactly that song. Like, I'll meet you at the back of the church. Let's go. Like, that's literally what this is. Like, they get out of town. The Eatons stage a coup so that they can escape without notice, and they are out of there. And then we spend this book with them coming to terms with some wasted time, what's kept them apart, why they've let things keep them apart. Sloane wondering why they've been apart and kind of being angry at Jasper for letting it be this way. If he really did like, have you just changed your mind? Like, this is again, I don't want to spoil this, but what I love about Elsie Silver, like, consistently what I've loved about her in Flawless and specifically Heartless, is that the things that, and I don't mean to put down other authors, so I'm not naming anyone, but things in a book where, like, there's a trope that plays out a certain way, and so I don't know what word to say that's not derogatory, so please don't take this derogatory to anyone, because I love plenty of other books. I love them. But there's a trope, and it plays out this one way, and that's how we're used to it going. And that's part of the thing, right, that always gives us dread when we're going into a third act conflict, because we know that the author's probably going to do this thing that is the easy way of telling the story, and we're just going to have to suffer through it and wait for someone to grovel so we can get over it, right? Like, that's what we're used to happening. And Elsie does this thing where when those roadblocks come up, when the, like, crux of the matter comes up that would normally lead to a certain scenario, she's just like, whoop, we're going to go this way. Like, I'm going to have my characters react this way. And it's almost like she asks herself, and I don't know this, I haven't had the pleasure of interviewing her yet, I hope to one day, of, like, does she ask herself, what if they did this? Like, that's what I hope she's asking herself, because that's what it feels like. It feels like when we get to that spot where normally a character would react this way, which would be completely reasonable, like, it seems to be the next step, but then they go this way, and they're like, I'm going to see through what's going on and assume the best of my partner, instead of assuming they were trying to hurt me. That is what happened in Heartless and why it made a favorite. And that's what happens in Powerless. And this was a 6-star read for me. My second 6-star read of 2023. Because there are a lot of things about Friends to Lovers that worry me. Like, I love Friends to Lovers. Like, I do. Because to me, it is, like, one of the most real scenarios I've seen play out. Like, I have so many of my friends that are married to their best friend. But what often doesn't work in a romance novel is, like, you need to have some kind of conflict. You know, you do. To make a story balanced, to have a 3-act structure, like, you need to have some kind of conflict. But often the lazy way, the easy, and again, I don't like saying easy because like writing a book is still amazing and you're not lazy for doing a thing, but I think taking the conventional route, you feel like you won't disappoint people if you do that. But I often feel disappointed because I'm like, your characters are so smart. Why did you do this when you could have done this and just been fantastic? And like, that's what Elsie Silver does. She looks at it and she's like, this is how people normally react when they have this scenario. And then she has one of her characters say, but that's bullshit. I don't feel that way. This is what it is. And it just makes it so good. And like, when I was getting to the 70%, I was like, okay, these are possibly going to be the issues. And you get scared that like, is this perfect book going to just fall into these normal conventions? And then the author does this. And you're just like, oh, that was perfect. That was exactly what I wanted you to do. But it's better than I was guessing you were going to do. And I just love that. I love that. So the other part that I'll touch on then, that won't be spoilers, but will be fantastic, is that this was like the kinkiest of the books, okay? Like, this one was really good. Jasper has control issues, and there was a certain part of the book, like, I put so many highlights in my notes, because when I get my physical book, I know some of my patrons will probably want this book annotated, so I was like, I'm going to take notes right from the beginning. So I was taking some notes. And there was this point where when he's thinking about her sexually, which, I mean, he has been, but he's like, I don't know how she's going to feel about this. Like, there are certain things that I like. And whenever a hero starts thinking there's certain things that I like, I start getting a tinkly feeling because I'm like, oh, I love when they have certain things that they like, because that usually means kinky things. So I will just tell you, some of the kinks that showed up in this book were praise. So much praise. Elsie does praise beyond anything. There is breath play. There is edging. And there's orgasm control in this book. Okay. It's so good. This also had some other fun tropes that I didn't get. Like, this had only one bed. This had like play wrestling, which I just love so much. This had so much great family time. Like, pretty much every character that Elsie Silver has written before shows up in this book at some point, and it was just so amazing. And then one final addendum, and I'm going to put up just a tiny little spoiler take for this one, because I know I've talked a lot about it already, but I haven't really shared any like deep story points for you. But one little spoiler point I want to talk about has to do with what I'm guessing is going to happen in the next book, which will kind of be some spoilers for this one. So here's my spoiler take for this. Leave if you're done. You can leave. The video is over now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you'll try some of these books I talked about. See you next week. Okay, a spoiler for this. So, when I read Heartless, Winter, Summer's sister from the first one, showed back up when Willow was at the hospital finding out she was pregnant. And Winter, it became clear to me that, like, Winter was going to be a heroine in this book. Like, she's still married, and she's still married in this one. But she had she's having issues with her husband. She thinks he's really, like, slimy. We know that he had been slimy with Summer. Like, there are things that we know. And Winter wants a relationship with her sister, but she doesn't think she can have it. And Willa, in that book, this is what makes Willa so great. Willa says she would absolutely accept you back. I can say that unequivocally. She wants a relationship with you. Anything else you're thinking, that's a lie, because, like, her mother's pretty toxic. That's the thing. Like, it's a lie. She wants you. And that was said in Heartless. So in Powerless, we see Winter coming around a little bit. She's being integrated in. So I definitely think that she will be in one of these books. Now, the thing that's making me a little nervous, and I don't know what will happen, is that Bo, something that I guessed this back in the second book. Bo is in the military. He's, like we said, one of the brothers, and he, like, again, this was in the last book. I had a guess because he was still doing active tours. I said that I think Bo is going to get injured, and then Winter will come and stay and help him convalesce at home. That's what I think is going to happen. And then it would be this, like, scarred hero and this grumpy heroine who at that point hopefully will be divorced. She'll have some trauma of her own because she's had a miscarriage and she's been, like, cheated on and these things. And I was like, they could be a really beautiful couple who are, like, you know, kind of healing each other. This is a guess. This is not confirmed. But in this book, there is something that has to do with Beau. And it is a big plot point to like Jasper and Sloane, because they both very much love Beau. Now, I still believe that, you know, the next book is going to be Beau, because we need to do another brother. And at the end of this book, we don't get a blurb or know the couple yet, but Elsie, and she may by the time it comes out, I want to be clear. Like, I have an ARC copy. It doesn't have all the final end pages. It just has a title. So the title of the 4th book is Reckless. And this is why I put this in the spoiler thing, because I don't know. I don't know if the Reckless will be Beau because of what happened to him in, like, I won't say, and we don't fully know what happened to him, but, like, we kind of know. Or if it will be Reckless because, like, Winter will want to be reckless for the first time in her life. Like, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be. But I'm still hopeful that's what it will be. However, in this book, they had, what's his face? I can't remember his name. He's one of the other bull riders show up, and he was flirting with Winter. And see, he's younger than her. And I wonder if Elsie wants to do, like, a younger man romance. Which, I mean, I like those, so I don't know. Because he's definitely reckless, right? Like, he's reckless. So, I don't know. But, I want to put this in the spoiler thing because the part about Beau is, like, people don't know that part yet. Hopefully there'll be more speculation. Or hopefully by the time that Powerless releases, which, again, is less than 2 weeks, she'll put out the blurb, and then we'll know what the couple's going to be. But I just wanted I wanted this right now. Like, I said it when I read Heartless, and I'm saying it now. That's what I still think will happen. I think that, because there's also, like, Winter is going to be coming to stay at the ranch. So, like, we're all set up for a romance to happen. I just hope that it's Beau and Winter, and not Winter and that other guy. Hopefully he was just flirting with her and it's whatever. But I feel like it will be, because both Beau and Winter are set up to be on the ranch, and she's not divorced yet, though, I think, so maybe we'll have some time jump that'll happen. So anyway, this was extremely long. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much. It means so much to me. And yeah, thank you for watching, friends. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, like this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.